Hey guys, how's it going? So a couple of months ago, I got my hands on the DJI Mic 3 to replace my DJI Mic 1s. I didn't ever get my hands on the 2, but I was using the 1s continuously and eventually the battery started dying on them, so I thought I needed an upgrade. And these have literally been with me day in and day out for the last month, so I just want to show you how I use them, how I set them up to get the best out of them. I'm going to go through all the settings and show you exactly how I've set them up, and I also want to show you how to run time codes off of them because I think this is a great feature that they've now included inside the mics. So my initial thoughts after using the mics for the first few times was they were way too sensitive. And in fact, they were so sensitive that when I was plugging them into my FX3, they were kind of cutting off, almost becoming too overdriven. Even after turning down the receivers and the mics down to like -8, turning it down on the camera, I felt like there was quite a lot of disturbance coming through the signal. Even if I was indoors filming a talk or something like that, it was picking up air conditioning, everything. I was very close to actually writing into DJI and telling them this, but then I actually messed around with it quite a lot and I changed a few settings and I stopped experiencing that, and now they actually sound absolutely amazing. And I'll show you what I changed and what the settings were, so if you're experiencing this problem, this should help you fix it. But two of the settings that really changed it for me was when you select your environment, indoor and outdoor, I'd always select outdoor. Initially, I'd always select indoor if I was indoor, but that actually just for some reason, that setting just did not work for me. And so changing it to outdoor every time, whether I was indoor or outdoor, just really helped a lot. And also enabling 32-bit float and lossless quality. They just seem to really do it for me. Even though 32-bit float doesn't go to the camera, for some reason, it just seemed to really help with sending the microphone to the receiver. So I'm going to show you how to set those up in a sec. But first, let's go through what I actually love about these microphones. So they're way more compact than the 1 and the 2, which is amazing because I always felt like with the 1, where the magnet was placed, a lot of people would knock them and they would fall off. Those first versions, I must have dropped them so many times, or clients did. So having them way more compact and lighter, and these are incredibly light. So they're super helpful in case you do drop them or anything. They seem to be pretty robust if you do drop them, but I just feel like the magnet being a lot stronger and the actual microphones being a lot lighter, you don't really drop them as much. The battery life is also a lot longer, and I feel like the battery is great on these. I think it was on the 1 anyway, it lasted great. Normally it would take me up to a day, although I found the receiver would normally die. Whereas with these, I had a setting on that turns the receiver off when the camera turns off, and this seemed to save the battery life. Although I'm not sure I'm going to keep that on anymore, because when I'm actually kind of running and gunning or just vlogging, I feel like if you turn the camera off and then turn it back on after a while, it seems to take a few seconds for the microphones to connect back with the receiver on top of the camera. And you can miss, a special moment or something like that. So I'm kind of being a bit wary with that setting, and I'm just messing around whether I want it on or off. I have had it on all this time, but now I'm going to actually turn it off and see how long the receiver lasts if it's just on all the time. This could mean the battery's going to die a lot quicker, but it means I might not miss a great moment. Another amazing thing about these microphones is they have upped the internal storage inside the microphone, which is great as well. More storage is always incredible. I never really feel like I ran out of storage on the DJI Mic 1 anyway, because audio doesn't really take up too much storage, but it's always great to have more anyway. They've also included 32-bit float, which I have to say sounds absolutely amazing. Although you won't pick up 32-bit float through your wire if you're going into the camera, but if you're recording internally, the 32-bit float straight into these microphones sounds absolutely amazing. I mean, the microphones sound absolutely amazing anyway. They do pick up a lot and they are very sensitive, but especially through the 32-bit float or lossless quality. I'm actually going to play you a small clip of how they sound when you're recording just straight to the microphone. This is a small clip of my girlfriend playing guitar and singing, and we hooked the microphone up to her guitar strap. And this is just off one microphone. I did have two connected to her, so I was choosing where the placement is best. But just have a listen to this and you'll hear how great it really sounds.
LA proved too much for the man, too much for the man. He couldn't make it, so he's leaving the life he's come to know.
Another great bonus feature is DJI have included time codes inside these microphones. Now, I definitely say this is a bonus feature because you wouldn't really be using time codes too much, especially if you're vlogging or something like that. But they are a huge feature if you're doing a bit bigger production, or even if you're running an interview and you just want to make sure the syncing up is really well synced up and really easy to sync up. There have been a couple of projects over the last few months where I did need time codes, and I didn't use them on these though, I was using it on something else. But it's great to be able to have the time codes on these and sync everything up really easily if you need time codes. What I also love about these versions of the microphone as opposed to the first ones is everything fits in the box. You can even fit the microphone with the dead cat And as a side note, I'd always use the grey dead cat. The black ones are more sensitive for indoors or so, but if you're going to put dead cats on, and it's going to be windy and you want to go outside, always use the grey ones. But I love how you can actually fit everything in the box, and you can even see I've got the wire up there, and everything fits in, which is just super helpful. So I don't actually really carry around the carry case very much. I normally just have this on me, and that's all I need. So I'm going to run you through the microphone settings and show you how I set everything up and why I have it set up that way. I'm going to try not to get my sausage fingers too in the way, but as you can see right now, I've got both microphones connected. And if I wanted to just change some of the settings or record individually, I would just click on that microphone. So if microphone 2 here, I can just hit this button and it will record internally in microphone 2. And if I hit this sound, it will mute microphone 2. I do have vibration on, so you might hear that vibration going off. And here you have noise cut, and here you have different kind of EQ settings, which I don't use any of these, and I'll explain why now. So basically, they say they have inbuilt AI noise cancellation in these microphones. It is burnt into the recording. That to me is a really big no-no. I really don't want to have internal noise cancellation burnt into the microphone, because I'd prefer to do it in post, and you can get some really amazing post-production noise cancellation programs. Like even the one in DaVinci is really, really good. If you want to see how I mix my audio in DaVinci, especially for something like spoken word, I'll link it somewhere in this video, and that's a little tutorial on how I use such things like noise cancellation or background noise removal in DaVinci. But there's also a great software called Clear, which is really good. It's a third party, but if I'm going to be using something like Premiere Pro, I'll use Clear, because that is an absolutely amazing app, and you can really get rid of a lot of background noise. So I would prefer to not have the background noise removed in this, because if you are out and there's something like birds singing in the trees or something that you might want to capture, you just don't have much control over what it's really cancelling. This could be really good though if you are like live streaming or something where it's happening quite instant anyway, so you don't mind if it's maybe you don't have time to run through a third-party program, you just want to cancel the noise straight there and then. But I guess I don't really do that kind of recording, so far I've not really had a need for it. But if you did want to use it as well, you have two settings on this. You have basic and then strong, but like I said, I would always leave these off. So that's how you can change those 4 settings in the individual microphone. You literally just click on the microphone and they're there, and you slide across. If you wanted to change both of them at the same time or record both of them at the same time, you literally just slide up from the bottom and it says record all or noise cancellation all. So if I hit noise all, it's going to give me this little warning they're all about to record. I click confirm, and both the microphones are recording now, as you can see. So that's super helpful, because back in the first ones as well, you'd have to go back individually and record them both one at a time, whereas now you can record everything. And then just slide back down to get rid of that option. So once again, let's just slide up and slide down. Now to get to the rest of your settings, what you want to do is slide down on the screen, and it has receiver settings and transmitter settings. So let's go into the receiver settings for now. So the first setting here, you're either going to have stereo, mono, or quadraphonic recording selected. Either will be stereo or mono. I doubt you're going to have quadraphonic. That basically means if you have 4 microphones going into this receiver, which I don't have at the moment. So let's explore the 2 settings of stereo or mono, because that's normally what I have it on. So stereo basically means if you have 2 microphones linked up to different people, you can split the signal that's going into the camera. Since these signals are mono anyway, because they're only 1 microphone, you can split the channel, so one speaker will going into your left channel and another speaker will going into your right. This is absolutely an amazing setting. They've always had this, even from the DJI Mic 1. And this is great if you're, especially like vlogging, so you're gonna have 1 microphone and 1 person and another microphone and another. And if you have 1 person who's wandering off and just talking to a stranger and it's still going through the camera, you can then delete that audio and still just use the audio from the other channel. But once you're in post anyway, you can do a kind of fill left with right or fill right with left, so that both microphones come through a stereo feed anyway. But once recording, you can actually split the channel. So if I'm recording on my own and I just have 1 microphone, I'll always have it on mono, because I want my 1 microphone to be taken up left and right channel. But if I'm recording with 2 microphones, I'll always try and split the feeds so that I can EQ them individually after. I'd always really, really try and make sure I remember to split the feed before recording with 2 people, to have that flexibility in post to be able to, like say, EQ or turn up a bit more gain on one microphone or the other. It'll even tell you there that microphone 1 is going into the left channel and microphone 2 is going into the right channel. Then the second option is audio monitoring. I very rarely monitor the receiver. I normally monitor the camera that's going into, so I never really use that setting. The next setting is gain. And I always keep this quite low. This is potentially a bit too low, -8, but I always want to be safe in case all of a sudden someone screams into the microphone. I really, really do not want it to overdrive. And even though we have 32-bit float internal recording, because sometimes if I'm just vlogging or something like that, I'm going straight to the camera and I'm not actually internal recording. I don't want the receiver to basically peak and then peak inside the camera. Although there is the audio in the camera. So actually, when you're recording into the camera, you actually have 3 options. You have the microphone volume, which you can also turn down. I think I do, and I have it down to about -8 as well to make sure it doesn't overdrive. I've got the -8 down on the receiver as well to make sure it doesn't overdrive. And you can also adjust the camera setting input to make sure that doesn't overdrive as well. So all of them, I'm very cautious that none of them are too loud. I'd rather drag it up and normalize the volume in post than have it too loud and you can't save it. You know, you've got the audio basically clipping. So I've got it down to -8. Like I said, that might be a bit extreme. Haven't messed around with this. But another thing I found was when it was too loud earlier, I faced that issue that I mentioned earlier when my FX3 was kind of ducking out and it was like clipping the volume a little bit, even though the volume was low on the microphones and was low on the camera as well. So I just want to say, like, be very careful with how loud you have things because they will clip. So lossless quality, make sure you have this on. You always want the highest quality recording. This is a definite. Auto on and off with camera is what I mentioned in the beginning about if I turn it off with the camera, it takes a few seconds for the transmitters to once again connect to the receiver. So I've been having this off all this time, but I'm going to see if I have this disabled, how much battery is actually going to drain from the receiver if I kind of have it on all day and then just turn the camera on and off. But it's up to you. Have a play around with this. It might not really be a necessary setting for you. Auto off, I'm also going to turn off. I have the transmitters at the moment on a time as well, and I'm going to turn that off as well because sometimes you're just taking a bit of a break. You are, not recording something for a while, and then the transmitter turn off, and then all of a sudden you see something, you go to record it, and your microphone's off. So that's a bit annoying as well. I know a lot of the time I'm talking about here, like vlogging, is just because I've been doing that a lot lately. So I feel like I want to optimize my settings for that. And this is what I mentioned earlier as well about environment. So for me, indoor never really worked. It was just too sensitive. The transmitter would be picking up too much other things. I'm not quite sure why, but it was just too sensitive. As soon as I put it on outdoor, it really made a difference for me. So I would definitely change that to outdoor. And it will also always ask when power on. I would leave this off because it is a bit annoying. It always asks you every time you turn the microphone on if you're in indoor and outdoor. But if you're always going to have it on outdoor, then you don't need it to ask you all the time. So that's all the receiver settings I would use. Now let's go to transmitter settings. Low cut, I would leave this off. I can put a low cut on inside the computer and EQ it inside the computer. I don't want it to do that inside while I'm recording. And this is the gain of the receiver. Once again, I'm going to put it, at a nice low volume. Make sure you're not clipping. So I've got it on -8, which might be overkill. Depends on what you're recording, how loud the speaker is that you are recording. But I've got it on -8. Adaptive gain control. Once again, I have this off because I don't want it to be doing too much, too much gain and basically, once again, too much post-processing inside while recording. It's already got 32-bit float on, which 32-bit float kind of does float. So if it's too quiet, it will adapt to that and stuff like that. And I think that's enough. I don't need this to be kind of also ducking the volume in and out. So I'm happy to leave that off. 32-bit float. This is what you definitely want on personally. I mean, if you can have high quality, then you want it. So definitely have this on. Like I said, though, this actually only really works when you're recording internally inside the transmitter or inside the microphone. This won't work if you're going into your camera. Your camera is probably not capable. So this will only work if it's internal, but it's definitely worth it for when you are recording internally because you would have the most amazing quality audio. And these microphones do sound amazing. So definitely turn on 32-bit flow. Record stop is basically for this button here. And if you disable this, you will not be able to stop recording from the receiver, which you might want if you feel like, you're recording a client or something and you feel like they might accidentally hit that button and stop the internal recording. So it's up to you if you want that on, but I always prefer to be able to hit the recording myself. So I always leave that on. Now, once again, noise cancellation via button. So if you have this on, you are able to trigger noise cancellation via the transmitter. I would not leave this on because I'm not going to use noise cancellation anyway, so I would stay well away from that. Startup auto recording, I leave this off. This is for if you, as soon as you get it out of the box, it will start recording. I know that some people do like this feature. because it's just kind of a safety net. As soon as the transmitter's outside the box, it's recording, but I prefer not to do that. Lower power auto recording is really good because it basically means, say if you've got your transmitter straight to your phone, if the phone dies or if the receiver dies, it will auto start recording internally. This is really cool if you want to save your audio, and it can be really useful actually. So I would leave this on. I haven't really needed to use it yet. So far, I've always had battery in everything I've done, but it's a good safety feature to have on anyway. Loop recording basically means that if the storage on your receiver runs out, it will just record over your oldest recording. So it means you'll never run out of space, which is really handy. I mean, with the amount of storage that's inbuilt in this, that'll probably be like last year's recording anyway. Storage just tells you how much storage is left on each transmitter, and you can actually format them from there. So I'm not going to do. You have the vibration option on, which I quite like because I want to know if something's been triggered or not triggered. Auto power off, as I mentioned before, I don't want my transmitters to turn off, so I'm going to leave that off as well. And then the file option, if you want to name the file something different, which I actually renamed the microphones for when I plugged them in my computer, because you have to plug in the microphones to your computer via USB-C, and then it's really hard to tell which one's which in the box, because you'll see that on the computer it will just be defaulted as something like unknown or removable file or something like that, so it's hard to tell which one's which. So I've labeled them microphone 1 and microphone 2, so I know which one's which inside like Finder. So another thing I want to show you is how to connect to the app, and you'll need this for the time codes. Well, I think you don't need it, but it's a lot easier if you have it. So let's go to DJI Mimo and then go to app, confirm, and it's already come up. So you can see, you just press connect. On the receiver, it says ready to connect. Make sure it's got the right code in there, connect or confirm, join. So it says it's connected now. And I'm going to show you how to set up the time codes through the app. So I've synced out to the app. And right now the time code is showing me the actual time of day, but it doesn't really need to be that. It just needs to be a time code no matter what the time code is. And then you can press sync to sync up all the devices, which I'll do now. So it will sync up all my transmitters and the receiver. And then it really depends on what you're recording on. So you can either record nothing, you record line in, and this is basically like if you've synced something up, like you have an external device like a tentacle or something like that, which is basically a timecode keeper or tracker, and you basically can plug it into your receiver, and then you basically call it jamming. So you're jamming all the time code, basically syncing up all the time code from that receiver. But that's a different story because you need something like a tentacle or something that is going to basically generate its own time codes. But the great thing about the DJI Mic 3 is that it basically generates its own time codes. So what you need to do is you need an out to a micro USB or whatever your camera receives that is like for jamming basically time codes, depends on your camera. So you basically plug this into that multi-port on your camera. It should sync up the time code. It makes sure you have timecode enabled on your camera, and it should basically sync up your timecode, and then when you start recording, all your timecode should be in sync. And timecodes, I feel like, don't normally go out of sync. I've heard multiple things from different people. Some people are like, it'll go out in 20 minutes, whereas I've never found that. I've left timecodes for days and then come back to them and they're all still in sync. So once you've kind of jammed it once, it should be in sync for quite a while. The only other option is if your camera doesn't support timecodes, you have the last option, which is A out, and this will record basically to your left channel on your camera, and it will record this noise. That sounds very weird, but that is actually a time code. That's basically the noise the time code makes, and it's inputting the data there. So basically this will take up your left channel on your camera, and you can basically then sync everything up from there. So this is actually awesome because it gives you multiple ways to also record the time code. But I would say with most modern cameras, the L out is your best option. You basically buy that converter wire, jam your camera, sync it all up, and then you're good to go. And it should keep the time codes for, like I say, as long as possible. Maybe at the beginning of the day, just jam your cameras up, or, beginning of the day or after lunch, just jam your cameras and it should all be in sync. You can also do this without the app. Basically, if you go into the timecode settings on the receiver, you can turn them on. As you can see, they're running, and they've actually remembered my setting. So the timecode is still remembered and they're on and everything is still running. So you can actually run this without using the app as well, which is really amazing. So one last thing I want to show you is if you don't use the receiver and you want to plug the DJI Mic, the transmitter, straight into your phone or an action cam or the Osmo or something like that, to open it up to sync with anything, I'm basically going to hit the linking button. If I hold that, the receiver will start flashing blue and green. Then if I go into my Bluetooth settings on my phone, it actually remembers because I connected last time. So this is the DJI Mic 3 TX-A. And it says connected. So now This microphone is actually going straight into my mobile phone, which is absolutely great. Or you can do it to your laptop, or as I said, the DJI Action 6 or the Osmo. Any of the other devices, you can basically sync it up, and it's so easy to do. That's pretty much everything. I hope this helped, and if you found something that doesn't work for you, I'd love to hear your feedback on it, or if you have a setting that you maybe disagree with and how to do something better. I'm always open to learning. This is just definitely how I run it. So please leave a comment if you have any feedback, and subscribe because I'm going to be putting out a lot more tutorials. So thanks a lot, and I'll see you on the next one.